Hi, I'm Darek Mazzone. This is KEXP, and this is a program we called Immigrant Song. I'm here with Hussein Kalonji, Tendai Maraire from the band Chimurenga Renaissance, and we're talking about the immigrant experience for artists living in the United States. So, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Let's get right into it. You're artists, so you have a different take on the immigrant experience than most people because some people, when they come to this country, in their home country, they were farmers, they were cobblers, but you guys you're the sons of musicians, so it was kind of preordained, shall we say, that thou shalt make music.
Right.
But you're not making music in the United States, and you're combining your influences from your home countries, which would be Zimbabwe and Congolese influence, with the things that you're experiencing in the United States, which is a melting pot. So you've got dominant musical systems, but also, you hear different things that you would not usually get a chance to hear in Zimbabwe. I doubt you're going to hear like Egyptian music or Ethiopian music in Zimbabwe, but you can hear normally. So speak to that a little bit. Your take on the immigrant experience and how you're making your music tied to that.
Well, I mean, as you said, both of us come from families that had immigrated here from Africa, and I think about my father. My father, Raymond Brank, was like a really big guitar player in Congo, very famous over there, and had just, kind of the life of a star over there. Like, you couldn't get close to him. He had a lot of, people that was, with his entourage. So when he, met my mother, and first, they married over there, and then when he first came to the United States, his vision of what he thought United States was going to be was so much different from what it actually was. He used to call himself Raymond Cowboy because he used to be in Congo and wear a cowboy hat. He tried to do everything he could to get a horse over there, but he couldn't get a horse over there, didn't have it. So he came over here to the United States thinking like, man, cowboys is awesome. They just play guitar and drink whiskey and they shoot up stuff. I want to go to the United States. When he got here, he realized it's not really like that. Things are different. And the big star that he was back home didn't transfer over here. So he's trying to tell people what he does. And at that time, America, it was in the mid-'70s. They didn't really know about, different music, let alone Congolese music. So it's a hard experience for a lot of people. People who come over are oftentimes of different social status from where they come from, but they come here and they got to start from scratch, and they got to build themselves back up. And so having seen that, kind of helped to build, what I'm doing, what I started doing with hip-hop, and then later on with what the Project Tendai and I are doing. But it definitely plays a big role in the music that we create because, what I'm saying, we're from those two different cultures. We know hip-hop very well. We know African music very well and how it's affected our families and our close ones, and we can kind of look at both sides. And I don't know, it's just something that, I guess Tendai could speak more on that.
Okay, but you're synthesizing this. You're not creating. You're just not playing Congolese music or Zimbabwean music. And your father with the Congo, it's because of Bonanza. Bonanza, the show, was exported like crazy all over the world. I remember that too. Growing up in Poland, it was like everybody in America's a cowboy, drinking whiskey, and they got horses. So that's why it was in every single language. So it's it's expected. He gets off the plane. Where are the cowboys? Where are the horses? Give me my hat. So the synthesis of this, and Tendai, your father was an educator, and he presented this music not in a synthesis. He's actually presenting it in its traditional form to the Northwest audience through the University of Washington. Speak to that, please, if you could.
It was a little bit different than that experience because he wasn't really a well-known musician back home. He just happened to be the one educated guy that got it. Very articulate, was charismatic, they know they could put him in a room with a bunch of American people and he could carry the room. He played mbirras, obviously, but the marimba is what really kind of blew up and became popular. So when he came, he taught the music at the University of Washington. So there was already a platform for him You know, they spent the year saying, this guy's coming, this is what he does. He's at the music colleges, he studied at Kwanangoma College, he's worked with all these different artists. He had already built relationships with other African guys that were in America or been in touch with them, as in Hugh Masekela, Miriam Makeba. So he was already kind of in tune with these people that had these relationships outside of Africa. So when he came, he had the platform again. But I think for him, he's a traditionalist. He came from nothing. I mean, where our grandmother is on my mother's side, on my father's side, it's the only house with electricity, you know. I never really wanted to go stay there because I got to have electricity. I was kind of Americanized, but he really was he had an agenda to keep the culture. You know, it's kind of like we've been talking about technology, and it's cool. Technology is great, but if you don't know the foundation of where you come from, who you are, what you are, why you play this instrument, then you definitely can lose a lot of what makes, especially for like the mbira, what makes it a beautiful instrument, what makes it sacred, what the songs are about, the struggle, what it really, even the way the amplification of it inside of a gourd. It's easy to just plug it up to, you know, a DI box and get all these mics put in it. But when you go home, you really look like, wow, there's like 25 people in a band playing it. So my father wanted to make sure those things were taught to people first. Okay. When you get that foundation, then you have something that you can grasp onto when you understand the history of it. I think what happened with him is he just got a little overdosed on the success. I mean, you can't come from a village then come to America, and the culture is more groupie-esque, you know? And so he became a real big star in the Northwest. I mean, everywhere he went, people knew him. I mean, he was huge.
He's responsible for a lot of music and a lot of musicians, a lot of inspiration.
Once he saw that, I think he kind of got caught up in that, which is what can happen being in the Western world, and the music, the tradition and the culture of it kind of got away from it. Okay. And I think that's kind of what we're doing. Like, the agenda is to say, look, let's get back to the basics. You do have to know how to be, you need to know your culture, you need to know your tradition, and then you can grow it from there. So, I mean, it was a different approach than what happened with Ramon, but I don't know, he kind of passed away too early to finish off the quest, so I just feel like we're doing it.
And you're carrying on.
Yeah.
And that's for me too. I mean, both of our fathers, it's like, you know, passed away early and without fully fulfilling what they were trying to do, what they had to contribute, all that talent that they had. So in a way, we're sort of picking up the baton and continuing along in our own way, you know what I mean? Not just copying things, but making new things off of our experience growing up, you know, as first generation Americans from Africa in America, and having to just balance those two perspectives of things, you know what I mean? And, you know, it's just like, it just comes natural, but it's just like, you know, I can't explain it.
The thing that's interesting about what you guys are doing is that you're actually going back. So often immigrants will come and set up their lives, and that's it.
Right.
There really isn't. I mean, occasionally, if there is a going back, it's like to get more people and bring them back here. And we were discussing this before, that sense of that home country is stuck in amber. It's frozen, like in New York and Brighton Beach. That's Moscow, but it's Moscow of 1977. It's not Moscow right now. But you guys are going back, so you're actually seeing it. And also, it's not just witnessing it, you're artists, so you're creating music that speaks to that evolution of the immigrant living in the States, but also the evolution of the Zimbabwean, Congolese, African there, and you are also providing, quote unquote, a soundtrack to that evolution and adding your own tone to that polyphony over there. So that's a lot to carry at the same time, because you've got this history with this music, and you guys are working in a hip-hop culture, which is sample-based. So when you're describing this music, it's the performance, it's the whole thing. It's not, I'm just going to take this sample because it quantizes well and it works well with this thing. It doesn't sound like that's something that you guys are approaching from that perspective. Or could you?
I think the thing is when we start making music, we have a new one pretty much almost done. That one's heavily sample-based. but we still have the live instrumentation. I don't know. When we do the music, we don't approach it with an agenda. We don't say this is going to be the outcome. We just don't do that. We more look at it from, we have discussions all the time about music, stories of our dads, how they were, the similarities they have, especially with dating and women, you know what I'm saying, which is huge. For me, was just being around. I'll put it this way. Not till being around him a lot did I realize how great of artists I've been around my whole life. I took the African side of it for granted. Oh, yeah, human secular, who cares? Mary McCabe, great, have dinner, go. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't until later that I was like, what? Who? You know him? This guitar right here, like this song that I heard, like Belia Bell, like that person played. Now I'm like, oh, these people are in our face, you know? And so now when I go back home, I have a newfound respect, and I'm trying to show them like, yo, man, first of all, life's too short to not grasp and appreciate your history, who you are, what Shona music is to the world. That's step one. Step two, don't put down the Mbita. You know, I was telling you guys about the story earlier, about the Bare market. And the crazy thing is, in America, people look at the Mbita like, whoa, they're fascinated. Back home, they're like, what? Why? Why are you playing that? Nah, we're about to get this, and we're going to rap, and we're going to do this, and I'm about to blow up. And obviously we talk about it all the time, they're making rap songs about bling and Bentleys, and it's like, dude, for what? Like, that's not what your contribution to hip-hop is. And so...
So are you providing that, quote-unquote, authenticity back to that?
Yes. Yes.
So you're creating a counter to the dominant messaging, which is like you've got to obtain goods, women,
right,
and basically show up, in videos. You don't own the stuff. You're just showing people that, you're next to this.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it's very, it tells kind of what we're doing. Just that example of the Mbita, which is one of the oldest, most sacred instruments in Africa, and has such a rich history. And then the new stuff that we're doing is just like, it's so far ahead of its time that it's almost that, we're basically, whereas Africans there or other people might have been like, what are you doing with that old instrument? That's like granddaddy's, daddy's old stuff. Like, we're trying to pop bottles and do all this stuff. We want to be in like Jay-Z videos and stuff. It's like, no, hold on a second. We got something very sacred here, but it's not that we're only like stuck in one time very long ago. We're taking that and bringing it to a futuristic type of way of using it. So it's definitely the mesh of that and how that all comes out.
But how are you being received? Because if you're saying that what their aspirations are wrong, which is kind of you are at the same time, how are you being received by the population in the Congo and Zimbabwe when you're basically, you're not telling them that they're being stupid, but you are presenting, it's like you're taking these instruments and this instrumentation with a sense of reverence where they're like, oh, that's old, I don't want that, I want this instead. How are you doing that?
In the beginning, to be very, very honest with you, they weren't feeling it at all. It probably took 3 or 4 trips home, a couple years, just for them to even get into Shabazz palaces. Mm-hmm. I would just be like, no, this is it. They're like, no, give us your music. No, this is it. You know what I'm saying? No, you need to play Mbita. No, listen to it. It's on there. The ngoma's on there. Everything. There's harmonies. There's everything you want to see is there. Even watch the live show. They couldn't even grasp it in that package. And so I would say, again, with the internet, with more accessibility to get online, with Wi-Fi in certain areas, other people coming back and forth, me taking the trips back home and saying, okay, look, this is it, really touching the people, getting to know them, creating dialogue. I've seen it change and grow in Zimbabwe. It went from, we don't know what you're doing, to, Chimurenga Renaissance, And then sometimes you got to prove yourself. I'm going to be the American boy when I get there. I don't know how it is for him in the world. He can speak the languages fluently, so he has a better advantage. Me, I'm coming in here with this accent. I can't really speak fluently, but I get the music. So if I sit around with a bunch of traditional people or the elders and I pick up the Mbita, they're always like, whoa. Okay. What? You know this song? Yeah. So you got to consistently continue to keep going back and proving yourself, or at least showing them like, look, I get this. I understand that song, but this song is also a song that somebody made up, you know? And I think that's the beautiful thing about America. It for something about the way we are here, you respect tradition. You know, let's just take a basketball player like Michael Jordan. He respected Dr. J, but he's like, I will dunk on you. You know what I'm saying? And I came here to be great. And I think that's the part of America that we've embraced, and we're trying to show them, like, look, there's this area of the music where you can be you. So, you know, learn the tradition, but grow it. So I've seen it change. It's way more embraced. I've seen people change their styles. I've seen rappers, they're definitely listening to the music, because they're even naming some of their stuff after stuff that we've done or said traditional words like Pungwe. They just wouldn't have used that. They just would have shied away from something traditional. But again, when you're in America, I'll say this, freedom of speech is huge. I never not knew freedom of speech. That's big. I underestimated it until I went home like right after independence. And I'm just running my mouth, you know, oh, this, that. And my grandparents are like, you don't talk like that here. And I'm like, what? Who's going to do anything? There's no, you know what I'm saying? Like, who's going to come shoot you? Like, why? You don't understand. You can't say that with the Army. And I'm like, you know, excuse my French, fuck the Army. I mean, what are they going to do? Not knowing, or fuck the police. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the NWA attitude in me.
Yeah.
Not knowing, like, no, you can't just run your mouth here. And so even my father was that. Even when there was apartheid, even when Mugabe was right or wrong, even my sister, my family has always been very outspoken about their political stances, how people treated other people. And I think now the younger artists are embracing that. So yeah, you got some that obviously want to be, you know, MTV rappers, but I've watched more of them be like, no, I'm about to rap with Maya Mbita. I'm about to talk about our real problems, our social problems here, our economic problems, you know what I'm saying? And we need to. I mean,
Okay.
don't see why not.
Do you think this is wonderful, and it speaks to this project is a project of its time? You've got the internet, you've got mobile, you're actually able to get this out in many different systems instead of just waiting for one show or one person to videotape you and put you on television, quote unquote. You're on many screens. But going back to the immigrant experience, do you think that you always have to prove yourself? Prove yourself to America and prove yourself to your home country? Do you think there's something about coming here? You know, I mean, I don't know many lazy immigrants. It's just inherently, it's like there's something ingrained, moving and setting up shop, and it's like, okay, I got to try harder. I got to do something more. And from, you know, there's one thing, you've got the classic story of somebody wants to rise up, help his family, help people, bring them here. But from an artist, it's a different kind of rising up. Because your job is to look at the world and say something about it, do something with it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it is a challenge as an artist, and that's, you know, basically why we came up with that concept of the album now, Proud to Be an African, because a lot of Africans, unfortunately, they're not proud to be Africans. Or they come from Africa and they come to the United States, and then their children are kind of rejecting anything about their culture. They don't want to, even if they can speak their language. There's Congolese people that can speak Lingala, and then I see them now and then they act like they can't speak Lingala. They act like they only speak English. And I was like, you know you speak Lingala too. So it's just kind of that rejecting of culture because of wanting to sort of just embrace everything American. And that's no, I mean, you know, America has good things about, you know, being here and opportunities or whatnot, but never forget who you are, where you're from. Like, you're from Poland, and you're proud to be Polish. You know your roots and your ancestry. That's good. So what we're trying to say is that, you know, that you shouldn't have to discredit any side of what you are, African or American. You know, embrace it and use it to discover yourself more. I mean, it's really about who you are. It's not so much where you're from, but at the same time, if you're going to discredit where you're from, it says a lot about who you are. So, you know, that's what we're trying to say, is just be real to yourself. But yeah, it is hard because, you know, on one side, you are trying to operate in the world of hip-hop or American music, and even though hip-hop came from a sort of a rebellious way of experimenting with music, and we're going to just scratch records and make this wonderful thing called hip-hop. It just came out spontaneously, and But even though it came like that, unfortunately now where it's at is kind of stagnant, because something that came from a rebellious creation like that is now like, no, wait, you got to do it like this, and you got to put the hook here, and you got to pop bottles here, or you got to have the video girls there. Yeah, you know what I mean? And so it becomes just like a formula, and it's like, wait a minute, that's what wasn't what it was about. And the same way, you know, African music was born out of great, you know, creations and folklore and whatnot, but then it can sometimes also become stagnant. So it's like, how do you advance the two? How do you push the envelope and stuff like that, and still have respect on both sides of the fence? That's a challenging thing. But you know, we're doing it just real from who we are. You know, not trying to, you know, please anybody, but just trying to pull whatever's within us out and just let the world hear it.
Evolving hip-hop and evolving African music and creating something unique and your own in Seattle. Not a very African-centric town, but you're doing it here right now. And I want to end with that, and just I wanted you guys to talk a little bit about, like, you know, what is it about the immigrant experience and in Seattle being really far away from quote-unquote home, and yet creating this thing, and maybe something about the fervency of music and the music community here, and the fact that there aren't many Africans, more now with the Somali population, more are coming here, but still that sense of like the other and belonging. How you guys deal with that?
It's interesting because as you guys are speaking, I was thinking about something that, again, you don't really think about being a first-generation American. It's names. My mom came here, she didn't even use her name. Most Africans in the 70s went with Mary or, you know what I'm saying, something else. And it's like, I think that what we're doing is absolutely amazing, because we never, I just never bought into that whole theory of like, okay, don't use your name, you gotta come with this name, you gotta, if you don't approach it this way, don't conform to this. And one thing I'll say is that Seattle's progressive enough musically, and maybe we're just lucky, we just happened to run into the Kurtzers and stuff of the world, the Frankels and KEXP, but we've been fortunate enough to be in a city that actually loves world music, that actually, you know, embraces different cultures. A guy came in here today from Folklife Festival. I grew up at that festival. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying for years, and I didn't realize its influence on my life until you go other places and they're like, what, free festival with, you know, the accordion and a marimba with Zydeco music? Hell no, there's no such thing as that. And I'm like, oh man, I know bagpipe music. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that Seattle's been, there's a reason our fathers were here, obviously. I mean, he could have been in, what, Boston?
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, there's just a reason, and it's a very diverse and non-judgmental place. I'm not going to say everything's great. I mean, we're seeing this new influx of people coming from around the world, but at least they're coming from around the world. At least they're, you know, they're forward thinking. And so here is not, it's more hard with our peers, I would say, the people we grew up rapping around, but the ones that actually you end up finding out later on that they're African and they never wanted to say anything, those guys are embracing it more. They're coming up going, yo, man, my name is actually this and my family's from here. And we're like, man, you've been here the whole time and we've been calling you Michael? Like, you know what I'm saying? Why didn't you come with this name? But we see, I think that's positive, you know? I mean, we took the chance, we jumped out on it. I know him. I didn't know he played the guitar until one day he's playing, and I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, yeah, so.
Okay, so it's courage. It's courage to be yourself and to transform and to change whatever you want to be. All right. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Chimurenga Renaissance, Tendai Maraire, Hussein Kalonji. I'm Darek Mazzone, and this is Immigrant Song. Thank you.